The wonderful thing about Montreat is that people give support to others. And so I really appreciate y'all coming out to give us all support. We really appreciate that. I just found out what I was supposed to talk to on the poster, so I'm not sure that's what I'm going to exactly concentrate on the last two books, but I'll give you sort of a general view of my writing career, if you want to call it that. I think I'll focus on why I started writing and why I chose such strange subjects. Why did I start writing? Well, it certainly wasn't for fortune and fame. If I had to live off what I earned from writing, I'd be a client rather than a volunteer at the homeless center. And as for fame, the closest I've gotten to fame is when someone confuses Frist with Frost. But I really started writing because I was asked to write up some research I'd done on leprosy. And so my first writing was scientific articles in scientific magazines on leprosy. But then I wanted to also get into fiction because I wanted to transform those statistics into real life stories, into real life people, because that's where the emotions and life lies. And so I started writing my first novel. And I've kept up writing after that because I felt that, you know, it's a good way of learning. And it's also feeling like I'm doing something in my retirement, and I keep out of the way of Claire. So it's I've kept on doing that, and so the next question is why these subjects? Most of my subjects are a little strange: leprosy, Armenians, and Nicaragua, etc. It's because I've lived abroad so much, and most of my settings of my novels and other things are abroad, because I've loved living abroad. And that love, so I want to talk a little about that, because that has a little to do with the memoirs, which was one subject matter. At Davidson, I went to Davidson, and I went on their second junior year abroad and studied in France for a year in a French university. And that opened the world to me. And after graduating from Davidson, I won a Fulbright to teach and do research in India. So I spent a year there. And I had trouble with the Vietnam War, but I thought that I should serve in some capacity. So right after that, I spent a year and a half at the height of the Vietnam War in Vietnam, working as a volunteer with UNICEF. And the first part was building hospital wards in Da Nang and Saigon. And the second part, I was the field representative of UNICEF for I Corps, which comprised 5 provinces in the north. And there, my duty was to set up emergency relief and feeding programs for refugees, especially for their children. For 15,000 a day we were feeding. And then, after that was over, I came back to face the music with the draft board and was tried in Montgomery, Alabama as a conscientious objector. And while I was waiting for my trial, I started working at Yale Psychiatric Institute for 2 years. And once I was acquitted, I went to Yale in the School of Public Health. And I had to do a research project. And I've become very interested in leprosy in India and Vietnam because it sort of bridged everything I wanted to do: sociology, history, religion, medicine, poverty, international. And so I did a research project in Tanzania with Yale funds for 6 months, living there in the outback and interviewing patients. After that, I came back and my focus changed from Asia and Africa to South America. because I fell in love with Claire Strachan. And Claire was born in Costa Rica, and her grandparents were British founders of the Latin America mission there. And so we were married in Costa Rica and spent a year in Spain afterwards, where she got her master's in Spanish literature, and I wrote some articles and learned Spanish. Then we lived 3 months in Venezuela and 15 years in Brazil. The Spanish helped, but then we had to learn Portuguese. And the idea of Brazil was there were 600,000 leprosy patients there. And we were we were invited by the government to do a pilot project to integrate them into society. And so for 3 years I did research. After that, putting in place the recommendations. And that involved founding organizations and building rehab centers, et cetera, in a number of cities. After Brazil, we came back to the States in 1988, and I served for 7 years as president of the American Leprosy Mission and of the International Federation of Leprosy. And that meant a lot of traveling. The ILEP had its headquarters in London, and we moved ALM from New Jersey down to South Carolina. After ALM and let me see where I am here. I get so confused where I am all this time. Anyway, after that was finished, we moved to Montreat. But Claire and I continued going overseas. We have a farm in Brazil, and we hope one day to make it into a Christian retreat center. And we also visit Central America a lot. And also, we lived 3 years in Nicaragua, where we did an economic development program on the Rio San Juan, which is a very beautiful but very poor region of Nicaragua. So another book came out of that. So that's sort of where my interest in international things comes, and the subjects of a lot of my books. I started writing because I said I did 6 articles for scientific magazines in Britain, in the US, and in Brazil. And then I was asked by the editor of the International Journal of Leprosy to write a chapter in the textbook on leprosy, on social rehab. So that was my first big writing assignment. Then after that, I wrote my own book called Don't Treat Me Like I Have Leprosy, a guide to overcoming prejudice and segregation, which has about the history of leprosy and different ways to help people with the disease integrate into society. That was published by ILEP, 5,000 copies, and was distributed free worldwide to health centers and hospitals. Later, they made another book, 10,000 copies, which was translated into Chinese, which is also free, that you can download actually on my site. After that, I wrote a book, where am I? I don't know. Oh yeah, I wrote my first novel. That's the one I talked about, trying to talk about leprosy and with real people. And this was based in Brazil. And it also talks about the Confederates who emigrated to Brazil after the Civil War. The descendant is a descendant of those Confederates. So it tells both the stories. It says The Descendant is a book with strong spiritual themes of suffering, prejudice, forgiveness, and grace. It is an informative book that tells the story of leprosy and of the Confederate immigration to Brazil. My next book, let me tell you a little about this. that I finished this book about 2 months before an International Leprosy Congress. And they're held every 5 years, and I wanted to launch it there because this time it was going to be in Brazil, the first time ever. And so it takes about a year to get an agent and shop something around. So I decided to self-publish. And that was a great decision. And I've kind of stuck with that from then on because it's cheap, it's quick, I control the copyright, I can get much more royalty. I get, although that's insignificant, and you control the pictures, you control, it comes out in ebook form, Nook or Kindle, and in printed fashion. The best thing, it's printed on demand, so you don't have a garage full of unwanted books, and the trees are still on the hills. So the next book I wrote was about my father. My father died when I was 14, and so this was a way to learn about him. I collected his sermons and summarized them. And it was a way to learn and also to honor him and to share him with other family members and friends. The next book, I get a lot of flack for the title, Be Good, Do Good. It's an amateur's guide to making the world a better place. This is sort of my thinking about all the international work I've done, the problems and the challenges, and trying to learn how to do good well. Be Good, Do Good is a book for people who seek meaning and joy in their lives and who desire to serve others in an honest and concrete way in today's rapidly shrinking world. In it, the author discusses what it means to love God and to love our neighbor as ourselves, as he gives practical advice on how to do that. That's one of my favorite, although because I have to read it about every week or so to keep on the right track. My next book was about Nicaragua, Through Fire and Water. Now in this adventurous tale set in one of the wildest, most beautiful and historic regions of Nicaragua, a man struggles to redeem himself and his family name as both he and his adopted country fight for their futures. This is about the Sandinista Contra War, about characters in there. We were very fortunate to meet and become friends with a lot of the protagonists on both sides of the war. And my work there was to develop ecotourism in this region, so this was a way of bringing attention to the region and the beauties of Nicaragua. The next book was Can These Bones Live? This is what I'm supposed to talk about. This is an interesting book, and I really enjoyed researching. It's about the Armenian genocide, or massacres. It says a novel of the Armenian massacres of 1915 and of ISIS today. I got interested in the Armenian situation because most of you all know Gigi Graham. Well, she was married to Stefan Chavigin, and they became good friends, Stefan, and I met his father in Switzerland, who all his family male members were massacred in 1950, and he escaped as a little boy. And I became interested in that, and it also was very interested in ancient Christianity, early Christianity, and the Armenian church, the Coptic, the Syriac. And this was a chance to research all that. And I did a lot of research with old interviews of Armenians who escaped, went there for about a month traveling the escape route. I interviewed refugees from Syria, the Archbishop of the Syriac Church, and learned an awful lot. And I learned about ISIS way before ISIS had even showed up on anybody's radar here. So it's about ISIS too, in the early phases. The last book is my memoir, which just came out a couple of months. It's really for family and friends, or family mainly and descendants. But some people have graciously said that they've really enjoyed it as well. And so that's the other thing. Now I am going to give, if anybody wants to find anything about this, they can go to tomfrist.com, and it has links to the organizations I've founded, etc., and to the books. Get them in e-book or written. And I'll leave one copy of each with the library as a donation, on the condition that when it's time to sell them for 25 cents, that you come to me first. And I'm leaving all these bookmarks about all the books except the memoirs over there. You can